Throughout the 1920s and 30s, as the popularity of Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party grew, copycat organizations sprang up all over Europe, some of them actively supported by the Nazi Party in Germany, many based among the German communities outside the Reich. In Austria, a huge Nazi Party grew in the 1920s and was an important force in creating the Anschluss, the union with Germany that took place in 1938. In the Sudetenland, the German-speaking parts of Czechoslovakia, there was Konrad Henlein and the Sudeten-German Home Front, which agitated for union with Germany. Other Nazi-type parties were not made up of Germans, but instead homegrown ultra-nationalist organizations. In Britain, there was the British Union of Fascists, led by the charismatic former British government minister Sir Oswald Mosley, which grew to a peak membership of around 50,000 followers in the mid-1930s. There were, of course, many others. The United States, which had a large proportion of the population claiming descent from German immigrants, was no less susceptible to the attractions of Hitler and Nazism during the tumultuous period of the Great Depression and isolationist 1930s. The first overtly American Nazi organization was the rather harmless-sounding Friends of New Germany, founded in May 1933 after Deputy Führer Rudolf Hess had given his permission to Nazi Party member and U.S. immigrant Heinz Spannknöbel. Spannknöbel was a minister in the Seventh-day Adventist Church and worked for the Ford Motor Company. With the assistance of the German consul in New York City, Spannknöbel formed the Friends, headquartered at Yorkville, Manhattan. Openly anti-Semitic, the organization organized boycotts of Jewish-owned businesses in Yorkville and stirred up general trouble in New York. Spannknöbel was deported in October 1933. He was later arrested by the Soviet NKVD in Germany in 1945 and died of starvation in a special camp in March 1947. The U.S. government began to investigate and monitor Nazi activities in America, but the Friends of New Germany never amounted to more than 10,000 members. It was wound up on Rudolf Hess's explicit orders in December 1935. A new organization was founded in Buffalo, New York in March 1936, the German-American Bund. The leader was a former World War I German soldier and Nazi Party member, Fritz Kuhn, who had emigrated to the United States. In order to expand its message and membership, the German-American Bund followed the Nazi practice of subdividing the nation, each section having its own party subdivision. In this way, the party spread right across the U.S., from coast to coast. Headquarters was at 178 East 85th Street in Manhattan, New York. The Bund's belief system was anti-communist, anti-Jewish, and pro-American, and also demanded that the U.S. remain neutral in any coming European war. Membership was around 25,000 fee-paying members in 1938. However, it never garnered widespread appeal among Americans. It remained a fringe organization that managed to pull off some high-profile stunts. The Bund was well organized and had training camps where recruits could be fully indoctrinated into National Socialist thought and practice, and these were built all over the U.S., including in Wisconsin, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and New York State. Not surprisingly, Jewish organizations in America were horrified by the Bund's actions and rhetoric, as well as many non-Jewish Americans as well, including members of Congress. The Bund's existence was damaging U.S.-German relations at a critical time in history. In 1938, both governments took action against the Bund, the U.S. passing the Foreign Agents Registration Act to force all German Nazis coming to the U.S. to register with the State Department. Germany cut off all financial support for the Bund and also forbade German nationals from joining. But in the end, it was a massive publicity stunt that proved the Bund's downfall. One of the most infamous parades the Bund held was at Madison Square Garden in New York City on the 20th of February 1939. 20,000 American Nazis gathered. The Nazi flag was paraded beside the Stars and Stripes, and George Washington's image was everywhere. Why? Bund had declared Washington to be the first fascist and said that he had doubted democracy as a system of government. During the rally, the Bundführer Kuhn made inflammatory statements about President Franklin D. Roosevelt, calling him Frank D. Rosenfeld.
We let them speak. When occasionally a lone outraged dissenter wanted to air his opposition, we provided police to preserve order. This was Madison Square Garden in New York City, and not Berlin nor Nuremberg.
Fighting broke out between anti-Nazi protesters and Kuhn's Nazis, disgusting much of America. The Bund cooperated closely with another right-wing group, the Christian Front, led by an anti-Semitic priest called Father Charles Coughlin. To control the chaos that erupted at Madison Square Garden, the New York Police Department deployed 1,700 officers. The rally had been permitted to go ahead on the grounds of freedom of speech. Though heavily criticized, the mayor of New York, Fiorello LaGuardia, said, quote, "If we are for free speech, we have to be for free speech for everybody, and that includes Nazis." Unquote. Bundführer Kuhn's days were numbered. The fairly effective Bund leader was also a thief, and later in 1939 the government finally got him when they sent him to prison for tax evasion and embezzlement. By 1940 the US was preparing for war. The draft was introduced and many Bund members ended up in the armed forces. The obvious concern for the US government once America entered the war against Japan and Germany was Bund members spying for Germany or committing acts of sabotage in the US. After being released from Sing Sing prison, Kuhn was stripped of his US citizenship and interned in Texas along with many of his followers until 1945, then deported back to Germany, where he died in Munich in 1951. However, the dissolution of the American-German Bund in the ramp-up to Pearl Harbor did not end Nazism in America. The American Nazi Party was founded in 1959 by George Lincoln Rockwell, a former World War II U.S. Navy officer. It changed its name to New Order in 1983 and still exists today. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and share.